It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemons. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hey, closet dwellers and closet busters. It is time once again for the Coming Out Lounge. I'm Rick Clemons, your host, the guy that helps you simplify your life to make those big, bold moves. And we are right in the middle of Pride Month, celebrating with 2 shows a week, covering all sorts of stories of coming out, everything from being bisexual, transgender, and gay to just people finding their way out of their personal closets. And we happen to be right on the cusp of Father's Day, just 2 days away here. And I know for me, as a father and having a father, which I think most of us do, we can oftentimes have some struggles with our parents, especially our fathers. And I thought, you know what? I've never done a Father's Day show, and the timing just worked out perfectly to do one. And I thought, well, maybe I could interview a bunch of other fathers, or I could do some stuff that's just dedication to fathers. And then I had this kind of bright idea that maybe I should bring my children on to talk about what it's like having a gay dad and growing up in a gay household. And with a little payoff money and everything, my 2 girls finally agreed to do this. So I'm really excited and feel very blessed and fortunate to have my 2 daughters here in the Coming Out Lounge podcast with us today. Riley and Shelby are my 2 beautiful bundles of joy that have both grown up to be beautiful, beautiful, beautiful young women that I'm so proud of. Welcome to Daddy's Podcast, girls.
Hi. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's give everybody kind of a little bit of history. So Shelby, you were about 4.5 years old, I think, when everything started happening. Riley, you were about 9 months old when Dad started coming out of the closet. Sound about right, girls?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So Shelby, I'm just going to start with you because I know Riley probably doesn't have a lot of memories about that. When Dad came out of the closet, what's the most significant memory you have at that point in time? Is there anything particular?
I think what I remember most is you bought a book for me to read about having gay dads, and I think that's like the most standout thing from that time. So it was a book that you bought me about a kid that has gay dads. His parents are getting divorced, and then his dad has a new partner, and it was kind of just like explaining what it means. I just remember that book sticking out from childhood a lot.
I remember that book too. I remember reading it when we were younger and like having it. I think I might still have it or we gave it away, but I remember having that too.
Mm-hmm. And what was it about the book that maybe helped you girls along?
I think for me, I guess it just, I'll say this now, I've never really struggled with thinking it wasn't super normal, but I guess it did kind of cement like, oh, this is normal, this is okay. Like there's an actual book about it. So for me, it just was like, oh, there's another kid in this book that's in the same exact situation. That's normal. And it kind of helped me understand because I would get the same sort of questions that the kid in the book would get. Like, oh, is that your uncle? Oh, who is that in terms of Georgie? So I think it just like normalized it for me, I guess.
What about you, Ryan?
I don't know. I don't think it really did a whole lot because I was so young and coming out of it, having 2 dads straight out of the gate, like it just seemed normal to me anyway. And I don't think I really needed that like Shelby might have because I was so young, and it's just like, it's been that way ever since. And having 2 dads and a gay dad has always been really normal to me. And I think it was just kind of, I didn't really realize that people didn't have gay dads until I was much older. So that book was just kind of like, oh, there's something that's like my dad's, and most people probably have this book or people read it. But then as I got older, I realized that that wasn't the truth.
So since you said that, Rye, when do you feel like you really realized the impact of having gay fathers?
Probably in like elementary school, probably not until like maybe 3rd to 5th grade when I started realizing that most people parents were still married and straight. But it was never something that really got in the way of making friends or, you know, anything like that. Most people were just like, oh, that's really cool, or found it interesting or intriguing or something. I don't think I've ever really faced a problem with it up until like high school or anything like that.
Okay. What about you, Shelby? Do you feel like you really got well, you were older, but when it really sunk into you what was going on?
Well, I think I had a little bit of the opposite of experience of Riley because I was older, so it hit me earlier than it hit her. I remember in elementary school, she used to tell people, because she was a kid, she was young, she would just say like, oh, we have gay dads, and I would be really embarrassed by it, not because I thought it was an embarrassing thing, but because of people's reaction to it. Like, I remember distinctly, like, these two brothers, she had told them, oh, we have gay dads, and the older brother was just like hounding us with questions like, what does that mean? Like, why do you have two dads? Like, all this stuff. And I also remember I think elementary school was the first time it happened, but I had friends that reacted. I remember one friend in particular, she said, my mom doesn't want me to hang out with you because you have gay dads. This was like 6th grade or something. Mm-hmm. And up until that point, I just didn't have an issue with it. And I think it was around that time when people my age started to understand it and tell their parents, and then in turn started to be like, oh, I can't hang out with you, or oh, my parents don't want me to come over, or like just asking questions of like, what does that mean to have gay dads? So I think I started to get embarrassed by it. Right. In elementary school.
I think about that time when you were in 6th grade was also when a lot of the gay marriage stuff was starting across the country. I mean, I think Massachusetts had probably just passed, if I think back to when it was. And so this was starting to be something more in the news. So there was a whole lot of social stuff showing up where it was more conversational than it probably had ever been too,
Yeah.
Yeah. I also remember, Shelby, like because I was so young and I didn't know that other people didn't have gay fathers or even divorced parents or anything like that. So I would tell people because I thought it was normal. And I remember Shelby being like, don't say that because of all the bad stuff that would come along with it. Of course, she wasn't like ashamed of her fathers, but being in elementary school and not understanding what it means to have gay dads and then having other kids your age ask you what it means, it's really hard to cope with that and deal with it.
What made it easier to start to deal with it? And neither one of you can answer that question.
I don't think I ever had a hard time dealing with it because I honestly got lucky with the people that I was friends with. Mm-hmm. Because like my best friend Alina, her aunts and multiple members of her families are gay and they are in long-lasting gay relationships. So, and of course her friends knew that. So a lot of people that I was friends with didn't really have a problem with it. And I don't think I ever really got anyone that had a problem with it up until like middle school when you're dealing with immature 13-year-old, 14, 12-year-old boys and stuff like that are saying F word and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think I ever really faced any problems with it up until middle school.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Shelby?
I think in middle school, once you get to middle school, people's parents kind of like back off a little bit and they're a little less protective of their kids. So I feel like that's when I started to experience less of like, oh, my child can't hang out with you. Right. And more of like friends who themselves kind of maybe believed that it wasn't like being gay wasn't okay or whatever. I remember I had one friend who, and maybe this was in high school, but her family was very religious. And I remember when Prop 8 stuff started happening, that I guess that would have been like the end of middle school, start of high school, her family would have the yes on, I remember we all talked about it. She would have the yes on Prop 8 stuff. And then I just remember, I think kind of having conversations with my friends of like, I remember one person said, oh, like, I don't have any problem with your dad's being gay, I just don't agree with it. So I think the shift was more like it was less about, oh, my parents won't let us hang out, and more like this was my friend's actual opinions. But I started to find that because we were getting kind of older and starting to like have our own beliefs and stuff, my friends could still be like, oh, this is what my parents believe, this is what I kind of believe, but it's okay, I'm setting it aside because I want to be friends with you still.
Right. So I'm curious, having grown up in a gay household, a mixed orientation family, actually, because you still lived with your mom and stuff throughout all this too. Do you think it helped you girls be more understanding of gay kids in high school and really be able to see those kids and see what they were going through?
I think it just helped understanding the gay community, just LGBTQ community in general, because we were so involved in it. Like we went to Pride all the time and we went to Cape Cod and did like the family Pride week and stuff like that. And even our mom was super supportive at that time. So it was like a whole family that was really prideful and stuff. So it was just, it was bizarre to me that people weren't like that because we grew up so like supportive of each other. And maybe Shelby has like a different view on this because I was so young and it just seems like this is the way it was. It did help me, I think, become really open-minded and really accepting of people, even if they have differing views or opinions or sexual orientations or genders or, you know, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like people will ask me now, like, oh, what's it like to have gay dads? And I'm like, well, that's just how it is. Like, I've always just been in the gay community. That's not weird to me. So in talking, I wrote a column for the newspaper I write for a while back. And one of the things I was thinking about as I was writing it is like, I've always felt like I was part of the gay community, even though I myself am not gay. And I've always felt like this kind of like this, like sort of like outside sort of thing, but always part of it. So I think for me in high school, I was in like a gay straight alliance. I went to a youth group. I did all sorts of stuff that involved the gay community, even though I myself didn't really identify as like part of it. But I think it's still, by being in that community as a child, it made me want to be part of that community in terms of just like supporting people, being kind of active in it, I guess, because I feel like I'm some part of it in some way, I guess.
Do either one of you girls, and this is where you can be really, truly honest. I told you girls, I told my daughters before we started recording this that anything I ask, they can say, I don't want to answer that. Or if they want to say something that they've never said before, that's totally cool. I'm curious if either of you ever felt forced to be embracing or part of the community or put into places that you're like, I didn't really want to be here.
No, like not at all. I think it was because both of us were so young that helped so much in like transitioning. Because I mean, even Shelby, she may remember some stuff, but she was only 4.5. You can only remember so much from that time. Like being a part of the gay community was like second nature. They were like, it was honestly like having a second family and all that stuff because of how involved we were. Yeah. And I mean, everyone that you guys surrounded us with, like your friends and all that sort of stuff, and like Uncle Mark and all that stuff was just so supportive and so loving that it just felt like family. It never felt like anything out of the ordinary or forced or anything like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like when people are asking like, oh, what's it like to have gay dads? Like when they ask these kind of questions, I almost feel like they're trying to ask like, oh, don't you feel like forced into it? Or like, do you agree with it or whatever? And it's like, why wouldn't I agree with it? Why wouldn't I be happy with it? Like that, to me, it's just like such an integral part of my childhood that it doesn't, I can't separate it from like my life, I guess. So it's not, it feels so normal to me that I almost feel like I can't answer questions like that because it's like, I don't know anything different. Right. So like, and it's like, I could be the kid that like realizes, oh, I'm not okay with this. This actually really affected me. I don't want to be part of this. But I think in going that extra step and being like, I'm going to be involved in this community. I'm going to be part of the Gay Straight Alliance. I'm going to, you know, do whatever. I think it just goes to show that it had like the opposite effect. Like I don't feel forced. I feel fully part of this community and I feel passionate about being part of this, you know? Yeah.
What do you think made it easiest for you to feel part of it? Either one of you.
I think the fact that you took us to Pride and you surrounded us with good people that were gay and straight and all these different things, that we were always surrounded by people that never cared about that stuff. Like that stuff didn't matter. That was like a second thought because it was all about support and love and stuff like that. So going to Pride and all that stuff made it honestly seem more normal because we'd be walking around and for once I wouldn't be, you know, the only one with two dads.
Sure.
And one of them wasn't my stepdad married to my mom or something, or like in a relationship with my mom. It was, no, my dad has a partner and they're going to be together for a really long time and they're both my dads. And going to Pride and stuff like that, you see not only other gay men with their partners and children, but you see, you know, lesbians and any type of person. And it's so like open and loving and supportive that was what really drew me to it also and kind of made me want to be a part of it more. And it made it easy for me to make my own choice because of what other people like showed.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just been fun. Kind of, I guess, is the best way to describe it. It's like I joke now with my friends, like, oh, my dads didn't take me camping on the weekend, so we went to Pride parades, and Broadway shows, but it's like, that's true. Like that's the fun part to me. I think growing up in this way has been just really positive, and like being able to go to these like family weeks in Cape Cod and do all this stuff, like that was really enriching for me, I think. So it made it easy because it was just such a positive experience, like having all these like gay men that we could say like, oh, that's Uncle whoever, like that's fun to like have those people around that are wanting to care for you as a kid and that are supporting your family lifestyle and all this stuff. So I think it was like being surrounded by positivity has made it so easy,
Absolutely. So there is a second dad in this equation, and my partner's name is George, and we are married. For those of you that are listening, you've all probably heard that numerous times. So I'm curious for the girls, I'm going to kind of step out of the limelight right now and bring George metaphorically into the picture, even though he's not here with us today on the podcast. What's been the best influence that you feel like George has brought to your lives, being your second dad and part of this family?
I think for me, again, maybe because I'm older, I feel like since I was in like high school and maybe even middle school, it's very much felt like he's been like, he's a father for sure, but he's also was like almost a very, very close friend.
Yes, always, I feel exactly the same.
I don't mean to say he doesn't feel like a father figure, because he completely does, but I feel like he's always been kind of more chill and never tried to like over-parent me, I guess. Like he's always been really positive and really understanding, and just, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but he's always...
let's just be honest. He's the one who calms Dad down. Like irritated with you guys, right?
Yes.
He does bring that chill place and he's helped me really begin to like communicate better with you girls by saying, okay, let's slow down. Let's just talk through this. Let's think through this. He may be as upset as I am, but he has a way of bringing some balance to this. And I've always told people, George seems to be between me and your mom. He can be kind of your go-to guy. You can kind of go to him and talk to him about stuff that you may not feel like. I mean, it may be stuff you eventually talk to us about, but you go and bounce stuff off of him. And sometimes it's, how the hell am I going to deal with Dad when Dad's this way, and you go and you figure it out. Anything else you want to add to it, Rye?
I think definitely describing Georgie as the in-between of you and Mom is so perfect. And that's how I've always felt. And I've you can ask any one of my friends, and that's how I've described him. Cause he's like Mom is very, very laid back, and you guys are kind of polar opposites a little bit. And Georgie's just that really good. He would be strict with us, but it would never be like over-parenting, like Shelby said, or, and he's always been like a really good friend and stuff like that. And I think that he does have this just perfect balance of rationality and like strictness, but also understanding and compassion. And I think that he brings a lot of good stuff out in everyone. Like you said, he calms you down, and he makes us take a step back. And I think he's just good for all of us. Like he's kind of what we need to make us not go at each other's throats and go insane. Like he's always been a really good rock and a really good positive part of my life.
Cool. So I'm curious for both of you. Actually, that kind of choked me up, so I'm having a little hard time talking right now. But for both of you, I'm curious, what is your perspective on, someone being LGBTQ? Is it something they're born with? Is it something that's a behavior? How do you girls view it?
I definitely think it's something that you're born with, but I think because society is so used to everyone just being straight, I was saying the other night, like straight people don't have a coming out because it's just so inherent. Like if someone's straight and they don't need to, have this big revelation, why would a gay person or a bisexual or transgender or, whatever anyone identifies with, why would that be any different? And I think it's something like, straight people go through, do I like girls, or am I interested in girls, or, whatever, like they go through that too. But I think because their sexuality is so normalized that it's a lot easier for them to just be like, yeah, I'm straight. So, and I think that's where a lot of the misconception about being gay is, whether you're born with it or you learn it or, whatever. But Shelby is obviously not gay, having two gay fathers, but that could always change. But people are always changing and discovering new things about themselves. And I think that's also another misconception. Like, you can go so long thinking you're one thing, but then you get exposed to something new and you're like, that's actually who I am. And I think that's with anything. And I don't think sexuality is an exception to that. I think it's definitely something that you're born with, but it's also something you need to discover like anything else that's a part of you.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think in any way it's something you choose. I don't know why anyone would choose to be persecuted.
Right.
It's 100%. It's part of who you are. And I think it's just like interesting to know that so deeply when so many people have to kind of learn that. Like for me, it's just like, my dad is gay. He's always been gay. I was texting someone this morning and they were like, I was telling some story and they were like, oh, was that before your dad was gay? I was like, no, he's always been gay. He just didn't come out till I was 5. Like it's not something you choose. And I agree with Riley. Like I think there's a lot of people that maybe, are in denial, are having a hard time with it. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden at 40 you decided that you were gay. It means that you weren't given the circumstances to be okay with that. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. Or it's like, I don't think it's a binary either. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, you're gay or you're straight. It's like people have different experiences with that and different levels of it. And that's totally okay. And I think that has so much to do with circumstance too. Like if you weren't raised in some like, quote unquote liberal place where it's like okay to be gay, like you would probably never like be okay with that. You wouldn't necessarily come out. But if you're kind of, given the opportunity to know that that's okay, I think you experience it a lot differently. But I think it's something inherent that you're born with. I think it's just circumstance allows it to happen, I guess.
Yeah. So Riley, you're just coming up on finishing high school. Shelby, you're just coming up on finishing college. And I'm curious, in your own perspectives, what do you think is different right now for your generation? Do you think it's
so much? I think social media helps so much because it gives people, like Shelby said, that grow up in places where being gay isn't common, or it's so ingrained in these people that it's wrong or something like that. But social media gives you that place where you can go to a community, even if it's online, and have acceptance and love and all that stuff. So I think that's a really positive part of social media, where you can, no matter where you are, find your people and find love and support. And I think that's a really amazing thing, especially, and I don't want to say like transgender is a trend, but because more people are coming out as transgender, because it's more of an accepted thing, and I think social media is a really big part of that, because it lets you find these communities where you wouldn't normally find in, your town or anything like that, where you didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's like, especially being in college has been really interesting to me, because Santa Cruz is like the most liberal bubble ever. But it's just really interesting because people still come from all over the place. Like people are coming from all these different backgrounds still. But it really is a place, in my opinion, for people to like feel okay with that. And I agree. I think social media is such a big part of that. And just like being in this digital age, as like cliche as that sounds, I think it gives people opportunity to feel okay, because the people that they can connect with are like right there at their fingertips. Like I think in your generation, Dad, it's like people would have to seek out people like physically in person that were like that. And I think if you live in a place where that's not, where being gay or being whatever is not acceptable, like that's a lot harder to find. Whereas now it's like you can hop on the internet, get on a forum, you can download a dating app, you can get any sort of thing where it's like you can instantly connect with these people no matter where they are. And it just makes it a lot easier. So I think, and then you come to a place like Santa Cruz where it's like, you're going to be accepted because that's just how a lot of people think up here. So I think it has so much to do with, technology and the digital age, and just like people's opinions too. I think people are so much more aware, especially right now, about like what's politically correct, what is not so correct, what is discriminatory. And I think the internet definitely helps to spread that. And it's making people more aware of like, oh, wow, that's bigotry or that's ignorant or whatever else. And I think it's making people a lot more self-conscious, I guess, about that sort of stuff.
So how much do either one of you feel that being raised in this household has helped you understand other people?
I think it's had the biggest and best influence ever. Like, I honestly don't think that I would be the same person I am even if we didn't go to Pride all the time or something like that, I'd still be a very different person. I think going to Pride and going to Family Week and being so involved in this community and having so many of your friends be gay or even straight and have just so much love and support, like I would not be the same person I am today without that.
So I'm laughing to myself because Riley keeps saying if we went to Pride all the time, I think we've actually been to Pride maybe 3 or 4 times in all these years, but it helps. It does help because we do. I mean, and those are the things that I think help. And Shelby, I want to get back to you to let you kind of answer that question. Well, go ahead and answer it. And then I got another one I want to ask around.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's because like I've been saying, like it's so ingrained in me that it's like, why wouldn't I just be okay with people? I think it's just like, okay, you're gay. Okay, you're trans. Cool. Like that's who you are. I'm not going to fight it.
I'm hoping it's helped you, like, not even just in the sexuality piece. I'm hoping it's helped you, like, just accept people in general, regardless of, who they are. And I know it has, because I've seen you girls. I've seen how you interact with people. So I'm curious, though, as you went through, and I know you guys have gone through a lot of tough times, and some of them that I've heard for the first time today. But I know within yourselves, you've gone through some really tough times of trying to find yourselves and be yourselves. How much has that helped you, having had a dad and really 2 dads? George hasn't had as much of a struggle being who he is as I did. But how has that impacted you and your own self to finally start to see who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world by having some role models that really take the tougher road?
I think for me, it's like on top of just being raised by gay dads, I feel like, I don't know, aside from just having gay dads, I think I look at our family situation as so different, like having, even if we were to reverse it, it's like you got remarried to another woman instead of Georgie, we still we were a family of 5 for so long, and I think that having a set of 3 parents that got along so much better than any divorced family I've ever seen. Like, I think that had a huge influence on me. But I also just think like having this unique career path and having Georgie have like his own unique career path and having mom. So like for people listening, so George went back to school, my mom went back to school. So that's been like really interesting to me. And I don't know if that has anything to do with, you being gay necessarily or anything, but I think just having this kind of unique family dynamic on top of that has really helped me a lot, because I'm like, okay, my mom is 50 something and she's going back to nursing school. George is in his 50s and he's going back to change his career path. And then my dad has just this really unconventional career, and that's okay. And I think that has been such a huge influence on me of like, okay, I don't have to go get, a biology degree and have like this really amazing, like well-paying job. Like it's okay to do something unconventional and do something a little bit different. And I think that's had a huge influence on me.
And do something that you love and that,
exactly
is I mean, not only do I feel like my coming out was about being true to yourself and, who you are as a person, but it starts to have tentacles that reach into every aspect of life, to do the career that you really want to do, to do things that really bring you happiness. And it may be unconventional stuff. So what about you, Ryan? What about you?
I agree with Shelby, not having, like she said, involving mom too, not just the gay dad's aspect. Our family was so unconventional that it was so normal too. So like unconventional is normal to me and normal isn't normal. So like all of you have gone back and changed your career paths in very late stages in your life. And you came out so late and Georgie came out really early and you both had such different experiences. And mom has had such different experiences with love and all this stuff. And I think that's really exposed us to so many different things and really taught us a lot about just everything, and that you don't have to necessarily choose something and stick with it forever if it's not something you're passionate about. And you can change and evolve and, find new things even at 40 or 50 years old that excite you and, intrigue you. And I think that you guys have just proved to us that just because at one point something was what you wanted, it doesn't necessarily have to last forever, and you can change no matter what.
Yeah. So as we get ready to wrap up here, I don't know if you girls realize how special this is to your dad for you to have come on and been on this podcast. And I don't know if you even realize the impact you're having right now by having shared your story. We typically listen to about 10,000 times in a month. So there's a huge impact you're going to have across probably close to 100 countries right now. As we wind it up, I'd love each of you to answer one quick question. If you could say something to a parent or a child out there that's listening, what would be some advice you'd like to give them about the experience or about being yourself or whatever comes to mind? It can be anything. Riley could give you great fashion and makeup tips, and Shelby could give you the same. If you want to leave something for a kid or a parent who may be struggling, because a lot of parents do go, what's this going to do to my kids? Whichever one of you wants to start would be great.
I think for me, it's just listen, just communicate. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest lessons you've taught me, Dad. And I don't know, I think communication is so key, and that has tested our relationship a lot.
Yep.
But I think that's the biggest thing we've learned. And I think we're to the point now where we can say okay, I just need to step back from this. I need to step back from you. And that's in all aspects of our life, whatever it may be. But I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from you is just listen. And I want to go back just a little bit to what we were talking about before, but one of the other biggest lessons you've taught me is just to be okay with who you are. Mm. And I so appreciate that from you, because it's you've never shamed me for wanting to be a film major or wanting to get into journalism or whatever else. And that's had such a huge impact on me. And not everyone has that kind of parent. Even my own peers are oh, my parents don't approve of me being a film major or whatever else. And I think in all aspects of my life, you've always been so understanding and accepting. And it's just baffling to me that there are people whose parents don't accept them, or whose parents can't get along to the point where they just don't have a relationship with their kids or whatever else.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest things I've gotten out of this is that we listen to each other, we communicate. So I think just listen to each other.
Mm-hmm. So This is interesting, because I think Riley would have a slightly different perspective. We butt heads quite a bit. We just butted heads just less than 24 hours ago, but then we came back to center. So what would you like to say, Ryan?
I think, I was going to tie that into what happened last night, is even though we have, or some parent and a child may have differing opinions or views or sexual orientations, even me being bisexual and you being gay, that difference doesn't necessarily mean that the other one is wrong, or that someone has to dominate the conversation with their opinion. You can have a conversation and still be very supportive of each other with having differing views and opinions. And I think that Shelby's saying that, you have always had this underlying really supportive and respect for us being who we are, even if we may not always agree on it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's always really important, because I think recognizing that your child is an autonomous person and they can make their own choices and they have their own opinions and stuff. And I think respecting that is really key.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so proud of both of you, and I hope you really know that. And I'm so proud that you chose to share yourself today with others that are listening, because it will have an impact. And I have to say, you gave me the greatest Father's Day gift you could give.
We're proud of you, Dad.
Yeah,
that's
we're
not something parents get
proud of you. Yeah.
Oh, I know you're proud of me. You just wish I had hair. So no, I'm really proud of you too. And I thank you so much for coming on and sharing yourselves. That was the biggest thing. And for really speaking your truth and being willing to say what you needed to say.
It's because we were raised by you, Dad.
Well, you were raised by two good dads. So I think you guys
by two good dads.
You need to give Georgie a little shout out here too, since he's not on the podcast. And so I think we'll wind it up there with just a lot of little love going around. And if you have a parent that you're not quite connecting with, I think, both my daughters pretty much said it, try to communicate and be open to what's going on and really trusting yourselves to have those conversations. I think that's a good place to just kind of wind up this episode. All right, Closet Dwellers and Closet Busters, that's it. We're wrapping it up this week, another episode of the Coming Out Lounge. And I just want to say thank you for always being a listener. And something that would help us really get this podcast out in the world to reach more people who could probably use this kind of support, to know that they're not alone, would be if you would be willing to go out there and give us a beautiful rating and review on whatever platform that you're listening to the podcast, be it iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you are interacting with us on the Coming Out Lounge. That would be awesome. Also, if you would share it with people, send it in a link via email. Do it from your iPhone. If you're listening to podcasts on your iPhone, there's a share button right there that you can make this happen. And the reason for that is we want to get this thing out there where more and more people can listen to it. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, would like to ask a particular question to be answered on the air, please give us a ring at 949 949-371-8559, 949-371-8559, or email me at rick@rickclemons.com, rick@rickclemons.com, and that's Clemons, Clemons. We'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you for listening. I'm Rick Clemons, the Coming Out Coach, that guy that helps you make those big, bold moves in life to go do the thing you're meant to do. Take care, everyone, and have a great week.